2 months after Helene, Western North Carolina still bears the scars. Our mission, to bring you the faces and names of those who experienced this destruction. Loss.
I lost everything, man.
Shock.
Nobody really had the mindset of we're going to see entire towns washed away.
Uncertainty.
This is Appalachia. There will be hypothermic deaths if we don't get people out into shelter.
Hope.
What we have here is worth fighting for.
Carolina Week will introduce you to the stories from the people on the ground, both then and now.
We're going to get forgotten. The word needs to go out. People need to be aware of what's going on.
From the Hussman School of Journalism and Media, this is Life After Helene, Climbing the Mountain. Welcome to Life After Helene, Climbing the Mountain. I'm Samantha Hoffman, and today I take you to Western North Carolina, covering the communities still devastated by the wrath of Helene. For the next half hour, we'll have team coverage around the state of North Carolina, introducing you to the most impacted in the moment and still today. Today we begin in Morganton, where our Anna Catermeyer introduces us to a UNC student who lived that very reality.
Right now I'm in Morganton, North Carolina, which is otherwise known as Nature's Playground. But Hurricane Helene had its own plans, as we can tell from the impact that it left on this Carolina family's home and the rest of her neighborhood.
Vivian Radford recalls the harrowing moment she realized Hurricane Helene's deadly waters would forever change her family's life. What started out as a little more than a trickle.
It looked like it had stopped rising, so we thought we were okay.
Took a quick and frightening turn.
Within 20 minutes, we started taking water in the den, and it was like in no time that room had started to fill up and it was starting to come in the kitchen.
Silver Creek, a creek not even a mile away from the family's front door, overflowed, causing water to gush into their home. Leaving the first floor covered in mud, water stains, and mold, it has been stripped down to the studs and is a complete rebuild. Radford describes the damage as total disarray.
Right now I'm standing in what was this family's living room. They told me that the water came up 5 feet right here on this wall. And to put that into context, that's as tall as I am.
Because there was 5 feet of water, it flipped the faces. Water is a powerful force. And so when we were able to get back in our home, there was nothing in the place where it had been left.
And this mother faced another challenge, telling her daughter the only home she's ever known is now destroyed.
She saw the clotheslines and she could tell it was Grayson's baby pictures up on them, and that was hard. That was a hard night.
My mom sent me videos, and that's when I realized how bad it really was.
The images left Leah Haithcock in shock as she replayed them on her phone. She was 165 miles away, attending school at Carolina, as she watched it all unfold from afar.
I'm in school, and I'm at a very expensive school, and they're now having to redo our entire house. So I do feel very, almost not guilty, but almost guilty in a way.
A reality that breaks her mother's heart.
We just continue to assure her that there's a way. She's where she needs to be. She's where we want her to be. And that we have family and friends that will help to make sure that continues.
The family says FEMA gave some money, which will help with framing that needs to be done to begin repairs. Of course, they are also strongly depending on friends and family for the emotional support they need now more than ever.
My friends have been a major help, and I have some friends who are not from the same area and from surrounding areas that have also been affected. So it's nice to know that I have people who are in the same boat and go through the same experiences as I am.
Even with the rebuilding ahead for Radford and her family, she says she considers herself lucky. As the waters rose, her family managed to stay safe and healthy. According to North Carolina's Department of Health and Human Services, 103 people died during Helene in 22 counties. After disasters like Helene, FEMA often steps in to cover funeral costs for deaths caused directly by the storm. We reached out to them and they said they've already dispersed $57,000 to families who lost loved ones during Helene. Even when people survive, the problems they face are only beginning. According to the State Department of Commerce, unemployment rates in October rose in 91 counties, while dropping in 3 and staying flat in 6. Buncombe County, where Asheville is, became the state's county with the highest rate of unemployment after being the lowest in September. Their rate rose by over 6%. Cooper says nearly $14 million has been donated to the NC Community Foundation Disaster Relief Fund. The fund, which has been around since Hurricane Fran in 1996, uses grants and reimbursements to help nonprofits meet urgent needs of disaster survivors. Some of the top donors include Lennar Home Builders, the Taiwanese government, and Blue Cross Blue Shield. As of right now, a press release from the governor's office says over $841,000 in Helene-related grants has been given out in 29 different counties. In Boone, businesses are trying to build back after taking a massive hit from Helene. Our Landon Job takes us to one store where its owners say customers are more than welcome.
A broom once used to sweep out the trash is now a part of the trash from this local business that has since shut down because of Hurricane Helene. Some businesses were fortunate enough to reopen, and I talked to one of those businesses. They told me it hasn't been the same since.
I hope I don't live long enough to see something like this happen again.
In the community of Valley Crucis, a light shines over the door where lines of people once stretched out onto the sidewalks and down the block. Now a ghost town during peak tourist season. The family-owned Mass General Store Annex is now in the process of building back after Hurricane Helene.
This is about 4 feet and a little bit.
Sherry Mortez has been with the store for years. She shows the damage that it took on.
And something broke this window here, which led to the water streaming into the store.
Floodwaters ripped away flower boxes. Sandbags piled up around the store weren't enough to stop the heavy flooding from pouring inside. Mortez tells me the business has taken a massive hit from the storm.
The parking lot that we're at the very end of right now would be filled before we open at 10 o'clock and would be, just beginning to dwindle out, say around 5:30 or 6 o'clock when we close.
While the building is still stocked with candy barrels, clothing, and items, the loss is evident through their sales.
This store was down 75% compared to last year, year over year.
The store rolled back its hours, closing an hour earlier than normal. Mortez says they desperately need customers to come back.
We need the foot traffic to help the coffee shop next door or the Emporium across the street. So it's not all about the mass store. We look to our communities just as much as they look to us.
The Chamber of Commerce is seeing this in businesses across Boone. Their October 2024 report found that 81% failed to meet their forecasted revenue, with 28% reporting a year-over-year loss of 51 through 75%. Chamber CEO David Jackson says the aftermath of the storm is taking a toll, especially during what is typically peak tourist season.
The impact of nobody being here is going to be something that we're going to feel for months from now.
That's exactly what they felt at Boonshine Brewing Company. The owners will tell you.
We would have a line out the door most Fridays, and we haven't had any of that lately.
The normally booming brew pub is much quieter now. Business is down 40% from last year, but the hurricane brings more than destruction and a loss to the bottom line.
The community's been amazing, coming together and helping each other out and supporting each other out of this.
A community that will rally together to return to a sense of normalcy. Boone has not just suffered physically, but also economically, like the Mass General Store and many other local businesses in the area. But this has brought the community together to stay mountain strong. In Boone, I'm Landon Job, Carolina Week.
Now, just because things aren't back to business as usual doesn't mean communities aren't coming together to make sure their neighbors are at least meeting their basic needs.
You need 3 today?
Katie Gowan worked at a restaurant in Asheville, but Helene forced it to close. Since the storm, Gowan has used her skills as a chef to serve free meals from Tuesday to Sunday, sometimes making up to 200 meals a day. As someone who survived Hurricane Katrina, she says it is important that people have access to vegan, gluten-free, and dairy-free options that are often unavailable in a disaster's aftermath.
I'm so glad that the puppy is doing better.
A variety of food options, however, aren't the only thing she worries will be lost after the storm.
My biggest concern, especially for the people of Swannanoa, is that we're going to get forgotten. The word needs to go out. People need to be aware of what's going on.
Other organizations have taken up the charge as well. Samaritan's Purse, a faith-based organization that has rescued communities around the world for over 50 years, now has to rescue its own. Headquartered in Boone, they say they've distributed generators and emergency supplies. They've coordinated relief flights, airlifting food, water, heaters, and blankets. FEMA says they are working alongside other organizations like the World Central Kitchen, Salvation Army, American Red Cross, and the Baptists on a Mission. They say these groups have collectively provided nearly 87,000 meals to survivors, while the State Department of Public Safety says it has provided 8.6 million pounds of meals and 23 million pounds of water. After the break, ongoing challenges as Swannanoa rebuilds, and how Helene helped some middle schoolers appreciate the chance to be together when this Carolina Week special returns. Next, we head to Canton, where Mayor Zeb Smathers says he wants to rebuild as a more storm-resistant town.
It does seem that we are now in Hurricane Alley. So we have to understand that. We have to understand that once-in-a-lifetime storms are happening every several years.
We wanted to know why Helene left such a strong impact. We talked to meteorologist Lance Blocker from WNCN in Raleigh.
All of these mechanisms came together in the wrong place at the wrong time for Western North Carolina.
Blocker says he hopes Helene can be a learning moment for emergency communication during future weather events. He says phrases like an 100-year flood don't compare to seeing the damage with your own eyes.
The main reason for that is to show people what's really happening in the moment so that hopefully the folks who maybe will not seek change and won't take protective measures will.
Some of this destruction Blocker described damage I got to see for myself. Now we travel to Swannanoa, an area with devastating flooding after a dam collapsed during Helene. I traveled there 1 month after Helene hit and saw what it was like as many volunteer organizations told me they had to leave. Today, as the people of North Carolina rebuild their homes, potential threats are being uncovered. A beautiful garden view of the mountains. That was August. Today, the same view, filled with debris and a hazmat mask needed just to get in the door.
Some things I looked for hours in here until I just couldn't breathe from the gases being released from the mud, and I had burns on my legs from the mud.
Many residents share this reality as they rebuild their homes. A Hendersonville woman worries the aftermath of Helene could be triggering health problems.
The dirt's everywhere. The dust is everywhere. It's on the paved roads out there. I mean, they're covered in nothing but dust. Our house is covered in nothing but dust. It's very concerning. What's it going to be for us in 10 years from now? You know, we don't know.
Dan Robitaille of Savage Freedom Relief Operations, a nonprofit that is helping rebuild and recover remote areas, says his crew is beginning to test the mud as volunteers, work dogs, and he himself continue to get sick.
Oh yes, in 1 week, I had 3 people go down with respiratory issues. 2 of them had asthma, and we have to put them on a nebulizer. They're sick. We can't help these people. And if these people get sick, we have no way to clean them up and remediate and make them well either.
NC Department of Environmental Quality says the state hasn't tested the mud because they have not seen specific chemical releases or injuries that cause concern. They are reestablishing water and air quality monitoring and advise residents to be careful, as the floodwaters may have untreated wastewater or chemicals from upstream. The CDC recommends anyone cleaning up after a natural disaster wear an N95 mask, goggles, and heavy work gloves to avoid unknown hazardous substances or chemicals in debris. Robitaille says the dust is just one of many potential environmental threats. He says some residents and volunteers are still living in tents or their cars, which leads to his greatest concern.
This is Appalachia. It below freezing weather, and we have guys in camps, and there was frost, and there was snow on top of the mountain in October. There will be hypothermic deaths if we don't get people out of into shelter.
Following the winter, Robitaille says spring showers could bring major catastrophe through landslides, as the eroded ground and lack of ground cover is causing runoff with the rain. USGS data indicates there have already been more than 2,000 total landslides already associated with Helene, about half of which impacted roads, rivers, and structures.
The runoff has already started. We had a brief shower yesterday, about 4 inches of rain, and we had landslides last night. No injuries, no damages, but we had roads that we had to clear again. That will happen again, repeatedly.
The environmental impacts of Helene continue to be a major concern for those still on the ground, months later. Their mission now, not just aid in relief, but also awareness.
Don't forget them.
Still to come.
Me being here and serving, it is making a difference.
How one school is bringing hope to its community when Life After Helene returns. Another challenge Helene left behind, the isolation for those who survived the storm.
So we would go up to the local library, and there was probably 200 people there. So we'd have to wait to get in and then get on the internet there so that we could talk to the people that also had internet.
This is one of many challenges for students, including those at App State, where Humsini Civic-Camar takes us.
A portable restroom washed away. Muddy waters flooding the roads. This is what freshman Sarah Gorgas filmed the day Helene struck Appalachian State University and its surrounding areas.
My entire room had flooded about 2 inches, so I had to rip my rug out, had to rip all of the furniture, put it on the beds, clean it up. Spent a good 3 hours mopping.
In the days that followed, remnants of Helene could be seen in her dorm room. Water damage. Around campus, flooded buildings, mud, and debris. Today, months later, these are the images we captured. Progress has been made. Students returned to class nearly 3 weeks later. The university says the academic year was kept on schedule despite missing 15% of instructional hours.
Overall, I mean, they did the best that they could. They tried to, they tried. Nobody could really expect what was coming.
Around 90% of the students here are North Carolina residents. Many watched the storm impact their campus and families in other parts of western North Carolina. Gorgas chose to stay on campus instead of going home.
We didn't have power, we didn't have running water, so it would have been a third person that was having to take like cold baths with whatever water we had, and then electricity is a big thing. So I couldn't do any of my schoolwork that was online.
Since returning, students have received emails from the university like this one, listing resources. But some told us they wanted more information.
Ambiguity about like the water damage and also, like the water conditions that come out of like the fountains and the showers and stuff like that. Like that is a little bit like up in the air.
So we asked App State if it has conducted any water quality or mold tests on campus. The university did not provide results, but did tell us through email that they brought in outside contractors and did all the required state and federal tests and passed all safety assessments. But the university acknowledges there is still work to be done to return to the days before Helene changed the campus and surrounding community. In Boone, Humsini Civic-Camar and Margaret Hungate reporting.
Throughout our coverage, we've seen moments of community, from birthday parties to Thanksgiving celebrations. And that's what our Chrisanne Bennett found from the middle schoolers of Asheville.
can be loud, be creative. At the In Real Life After School program, Asheville middle schoolers get to be themselves.
But I love being part of a learning organization that has equity at the center.
Asheville City School Foundation's Copeland Rudolph tells us the program provides students in underserved communities the resources that they need to succeed in school. For more than 30 years, it has focused on making changes to best serve communities of color.
To be able to work with students of color along with all of our other students, but to represent, it brings me a lot of joy and passion.
But in October, these changes came to an abrupt halt. Hurricane Helene slammed into this once proclaimed climate haven, and not only did it flood houses and streets, but also the already widening socioeconomic divides.
Students were left feeling isolated. That was the case for Raymond Stevenson.
I'm missing a whole lot of context, as well as not being able to see people that I was cool with who was younger than me.
Raymond, a sophomore at Asheville High School, serves as a mentor for many of these students. They are what he missed most. When students all returned, covered water fountains lined the hallways. The day we arrived, the boiling water advisory was lifted and 2 months had passed since the city had drinking water after Helene. Water and a new sense of community now flow through Asheville.
Different than COVID, which was all about separation, the hurricane really allowed kids to connect, to meet their neighbors, to still volunteer. And
now, months ahead of schedule, the In Real Life After School program is back up and running.
It brought me a lot of joy to know that students, they didn't forget about us.
Raymond can once again offer support for the mentees that they need now more than ever before. In Asheville, I'm Chrisanne Bennett, Carolina Week.
While school administrators communicated with students, the government had to regularly update people affected. Plenty of misinformation spread about the storm and federal response, which prompted calls like these from public officials.
There's still a persistent and dangerous flow of misinformation.
Authorities say false claims played a role in FEMA agents being targeted. In Rutherford County, police say a man threatened FEMA agents with an assault rifle, and that led FEMA to have to suspend operations. FEMA also had to make its own site to battle rumors. 3 full pages of misinformation, from FEMA tearing down homes, to detainment camps, to a cap on how much money victims could get. This is all false, all misinformation that made the rounds in social media and politics. Even a false claim that FEMA's budget troubles were a result of money spent helping undocumented migrants. That false claim made by now President-elect Donald Trump as he was campaigning in North Carolina just outside Asheville. It adds to the feelings that many in Western North Carolina have had to cope with. Frustration, disappointment, despair. The list is long for what those here have endured. But among that list, for some, is still hope.
What we're doing here, we are bringing hope to people who need it.
You just learned that home is not a physical place, it's where your people are.
And we could see in their faces, the hope they could feel because we were here to helping them and assisting them.
Why don't we give up? Why don't people leave? Because what we have here is worth fighting for. Our ups and downs, it's worth it. And so I plan to call West North Carolina home for the rest of my life, and I think so many others will too.
The people here have certainly inspired. We hope those we introduce you today give you a better understanding of their reality then and now, 2 months after Helene changed the lives of people and communities forever. In Green Mountain, I'm Samantha Hoffman for this special edition of Carolina Week.